Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, February 11th meeting of the Comox Valley Regional Sewage Commission. I'd like to acknowledge that our meeting is being held on the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. I'd like to welcome all of the commission directors, and that would today include Director Hazlitt from Comox, who I believe is here subbing for Director Swift. And we also have I believe Director Hardy from Area B, who has voiced but not voted at this table. And welcome to all the staff that are here with us today for important meetings regarding our upcoming financial plan. I just want to acknowledge it's a spectacular day in the Comox Valley, but it's been very, very cold. And at times like this, we certainly think of people who have to work outside for a living, and that would include those people who are working on the sewage conveyance project for all of our benefit. So without further ado, we shall move on. And our first item of business is public input on the 2025 to 2029 financial plan. I'll turn it over to staff, please.
Thank you, Chair. And good afternoon to the Sewage Commission. Before I introduce Lucy Wachart to provide an update on the public input to the financial plan, I did just want to provide some opening remarks, and similar to what we spoke about at the budget kickoff meeting a week ago, we continue to be in very uncertain and volatile economic times. Seemingly there are changes and impacts we are seeing on a daily basis. With that, actions the CVRD is undertaking is we are taking a look into our suppliers list and understanding where we are obtaining goods and services, and recognizing if there is going to be any impact to those purchases as a result of either current or pending tariffs, as well as we're looking at our capital projects, both those that are already in stream and those that we are proposing to undertake, and again looking at the financial impacts or the impacts of any kind of economic instability. Where we need to, we will be coming to Sewage Commission to make recommendations around the effects of that analysis, recognizing that fiscal sustainability is of utmost importance. And then also I just want to finalize by saying that we do need to adopt a budget for the CVRD by the end of March. That is our legislated date. And so that is a big part of what today is about, introducing this budget as well as the 99 plus other services at your various other committee, commission, and board meetings. And so with that, I just want to reassure that this is very much still front of mind, and staff are undertaking those components of analysis, and we'll be returning to the board with any other, or the Sewage Commission with any other action and feedback that we'll be seeking. And Lucy, I know that you had also some opening remarks. I'm not sure if they were going to be here on the public input portion or the item where we actually introduced the budget. So I'll turn it over to Lucy Wachart, our Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you. Good afternoon through the CAO and the chair, and to the directors. We're pleased to be here today to bring forward our budgets for the Sewer Commission today. And first of all, as is normal for us, is to touch on public engagement first. So our public engagement into budget, it's being conducted in the same manner in which we did in the previous year. And this means that we're continuing to use our focal point of our Engage page on the CVRD website. So Engage gives our website visitor easy access to all our budget information that's posted online, including calendars and specific dates. Citizens can ask questions or just leave a bit of feedback if they like. So to date, we've had 4 questions that have been posed and have been asked. None of the questions relate to sewage treatment. And just for your own interest, potentially, I won't go through all of them, but we have a couple of questions that were about recreation services, a couple that was about overall guidance of the CVRD board, and one about our Service 450 emergency shelter and supportive housing, and related to our AAP process and the town of Comox. So that's all I have for you on public engagement. And if there are no further questions in that area, I'll just move on to a few other introductory comments before we get right into the budgets. That's okay.
We'll just take a moment to assure that nobody's staggered by the disappointment that there aren't any questions about sewage. Are there any questions or comments from directors? No, carry on then. Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you. Lisa's just going to put up a slide for us, and that'll just take a minute here. So as I said, we're quite pleased to be here to bring forward your proposed financial plan for the Sewage Commission. A bit of introductory comments just this is more so for the benefit of those commission directors that are not part of the CVRD board. If you're on the CVRD board, you've heard this before, so sorry if it feels quite repetitive, but I just want to make sure before we get going that there are no questions from the other members. We made some big changes last year. We're following along in the same lines, but just want to give opportunity to ensure we're all good to go. Thank you, Lisa. So just to give some context of where we are in the process, this roadmap may be useful to you. That's up on the screen. Our process began with the delivery of the CVR to the CVRD, the proposed budget on January 28th. We did put our full budget package on the website on January 22nd, and this package include the summary level PowerPoint, budget reports, supplementary information, just giving directors comprehensive information to support these budget meetings and discussions. So we continued in the 2025 cycle with our dedicated budget meetings. This is the same as we started last year. February 3rd was the first all-day meeting, and during this time, CVRD had an overview of our core services and that then dealt with those individual services of the responsibility of that board. We continued with the 4th and the 10th with BCOB and meeting 1 of 2 for EASC. And here we are today. Today is about all those services for which the CVRD has delegated budget authority to committees and commissions. Sewage Commission is up first today. We have your Service 335, Comox Valley Sewage, which will be presented by our managers. We'll give a brief overview, but before we do that, Mark Rutten will just provide you overall context information on the whole sewage treatment as a core service for the district. We will ask for a resolution once we get through the service presentations and all of the discussions. If you need additional information, we've been trying to get that back to you as soon as possible. And if by chance that you don't have enough time today or you need something in addition to what we have provided already, we do have our February 25th day that's reserved if there's anything that needs to come back to the committee. The recommended budget, as you can see on the screen, this year it's set for March 11th. So the CVRD will have everything rolled back up and the recommended budget presented to them on March 11th, with bylaws being adopted on March 18th. So with that, if there isn't any specific questions, we can move on to your overview of this core service. That's okay. Okay, good. Absolutely.
So I'll just introduce Mark Rutten, our General Manager of Engineering Services, and Mark's going to present the core service of sewer treatment to the Sewage Commission, something that's already been presented to the board, but an overview here for the board, for the Sewage Commission.
Thank you, James. Through the CAO and through the chair, I'll move through this quickly, as it is a little bit of a repeat for many of you. But Comox Valley Regional District owns and operates several sewer systems, but the most significant one is the Comox Valley Sewer Service. And got the wrong presentation in front of me, sorry. Yeah, it's interesting to note that about half of the residents in the Comox Valley Regional District are served by this large system. Some of the key service outcomes, these were developed by the board several years ago with a focus on asset management, affordability, resiliency, partnering with Comox First Nation, reduced inflow and infiltration, which is a big topic of discussion for this service, and risk reduction of Willamar Bluffs, for which the conveyance project is currently being installed. Some of the key initiatives are, of course, the conveyance project, which is coming along well. Liquid waste management planning, which Chris and his team have been working on for a long time and are now moved into the third phase of that process. Sewer Extension South remains a key priority for this service and for the Electoral Area Services Committee. And upgrade projects that are being planned for the future at the wastewater treatment plant. On corporate energy and emissions, we completed some audit work in 2024 just to take a broad look at the whole service. In 2025, you can expect the detailed study of a few projects that we'll then report out on midway through the year to determine whether there's something that the commission wants to move forward with. Trends, challenges, and opportunities, and Chris will speak to this in more detail, but this service has a lot of equipment in it, and we are seeing challenges around the lead time for those pieces of equipment, high costs. I&I is an issue for the service that if it can be reduced, creates some great opportunities. And then for South Sewer Project, we do have a complicated partnership there that's creating some challenges for that project. On the opportunity side, we have a great team in place that's always looking for innovation, and asset management starting to show some promise for this asset-intensive service. This is a bar graph of the all three of the CVRD sewer services, but the main one is the Comox Valley Sewer Service. And the only thing to highlight here, I think, is in the last few years, you see the orange part of the bar increasing, and that is our debt servicing costs. And you can see that they make up a big part of the future budget for this service. So we are accumulating significant debt in the service, something to keep an eye on and discuss. And then here, a highlight is on the first two bars, you can see quite a bit of spending there. Quite a bit of funding from government grants, and that is the money that we're using from grants to fund some of the detailed design work on South Sewer. So that's what's planned there. So in summary, this is the summary slide, just highlighting the key drivers. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any at the moment. So feel free to proceed.
Great. So that will take us to Service 335. Yeah, the sewer service budget, and Chris LaRose, Senior Manager of Water and Wastewater Services, will begin the introduction. Then I see Reed Sellington is also with us today. So I think between Chris and Reed, we'll hear that presentation.
And I did forget to thank Mark. Thanks very much for that presentation, Mark. Much appreciated. Carry on.
Thanks, James, and through the chair, good afternoon, everyone. So Reed and I are here today to give you a summary of the proposed financial plan for this service and a summary of last year's accomplishments and what we have planned for the year ahead. I'll just start off with a brief summary of the service. So the service provides bulk wastewater conveyance, treatment, and discharge services for the core municipalities, Courtenay and Comox. So includes the entirety of the boundaries of both of those jurisdictions. And the service area was recently expanded in August of 2022 to include defined areas within Area A, as shown at the bottom of the map there, in anticipation of the extension of sewer services south. There are three sub-functions that we use to help separate and track costs related to kind of major components of the service, being, so 335 is the parent function, 336 tracks all costs relating to the treatment plant, 337 tracks the costs relating to our biosolids composting operation up next to the landfill, and 338 tracks all costs relating to the pump stations that help to push the wastewater through to the treatment plant. So I'll ask Reid to walk us through accomplishments of last year.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Just like to highlight some of the accomplishments from 2024 in a very busy year for the service. One of the first and foremost, of course, the conveyance project operations team worked hand in hand with Charlie and the capital projects team from the CVRD and our owner's engineer and the design team to further the actual final design of the conveyance project. And of course, they've been working on it for some time now. So a lot of operational support back and forth to make sure they have access to pump stations and work on our road on Brent Road that's been completed already with trucks and stuff moving back and forth. So far it's been a good partnership. It's about to get a lot more busy this year with work to be done on the plant and more complicated work done at the pump stations. We worked with our treatment or process expert that we engaged, Dr. Dagger, last year to help advance some to really quantify the capacity of the tankage that we have at the treatment plant. So we conducted a bunch of stress testing on the tanks in the summer under his kind of guidance, as well as trialing some different chemical additions to help with process by dosing at our Courtney pump station. So all of that information is coming together in a report from him to help guide the phase 4 upgrades and site master plan. Chris and I and Lane, our senior operator, as well as folks from Corolla, we participated in some site visits earlier in 2024. One of the main components to be upgraded at the treatment plant is the new headworks, as well as the UV disinfection. So we were really touring other facilities to get some inside knowledge from their operations teams on what's worked and what hasn't worked for them, and trying to pull everyone. There's many ways to set the headworks up and do the design. So we're trying to pull together all the best design aspects from the different municipalities and see if we can come up with the best headworks out there. A couple of the larger projects that we did last year, as you can see the bottom right hand corner photos. They completed SCADA controls consolidation upgrade, which was definitely needed. You can see the left-hand side picture there beforehand, and then the very nice, clean, organized, well-identified slide on the right. So that was one of our last SCADA consolidation exercises. We'd been completing a few in the previous years as well. And the first replacement of the activated carbon in our odor unit for polishing after the wet chemical scrubbers. So it was the first time that the carbon needed to be replaced after their initial install. We basically got the expected life expectancy of the activated carbon in there. It was a little over 5 years that we had it running on before the carbon was exhausted and needed to be replaced. So that was a big job as well. It was somewhere around 13,000 pounds of activated carbon that needed to be removed from the unit and then reinstalled. You can see the crew up on the top right there getting ready to start putting boxes back into the carbon scrubber. So yes, busy year 2024, and on to 25 is shaping up to be just as busy. So some of the work plan for 2025, of course, continued support of the conveyance project. I mentioned it'll be a little bit more involved for operations this year, aside from just the design phase of it, with work on the plant site and more detailed work being done at the pump stations themselves. We'll be working with Corolla to finalize the site master plan this year, which is exciting, and to continue progressing the phase 4 design upgrades. A couple of the bigger jobs this year: trunk main flushing for the first time on the Hudson and Greenwood trunks, and flushing of the siphon under the Courtney River. Those were actually both scheduled for last year, but with all the process optimization work at the plant, it's moved into this year, so we'll be gearing up to do that in the summer. Along with that, we need to improve access to the siphon. So in the past, we've moved through the Kuskokwim site now to get access to the siphon on the Courtney Pump Station side of the river, and that's just not going to be a possibility moving forward. So we need to figure out a more permanent access, likely down the side of the old Courtney Pump Station, to be able to get to that critical infrastructure on the other side of the river. We've got a coating project to do this year. We didn't do one last year because of the workload, but moving forward with it this year, we procured the Belzona already, so we have the product to do the work. So this year we will be draining, sandblasting, removing the steel out of one of our thickeners, and then recoating with Belzona and installing new steel structure in there. So that tank will be in good shape and ready to go for another 30 years, hopefully. Compost site, that's the picture there. You can see this job is pretty much wrapped up. The compost operators in the past for many years have been climbing up the pile of active compost to implant the probes into the top of the pile, leading to some safety issues. It's a hot, lots of moisture environment up there, some off gassing. It was something that needed to be addressed. And we can say we were up there this morning and we've got all the new probes in place. So we've ordered 15-foot long temperature probes that had holes cored through the roof. So we're able to insert the probes into the pile from the top of the roof. So now the operators don't need to get out of their vehicles and get up on top of that compost pile. So that's been a big success. We have one last controls upgrade to do. Kind of like the last one you saw for the SCADA for the odor control last year. We'll be tackling the dewatering polymer room this year, and refresh asset inventory, condition assessments, updated quotes for moving forward on our financial plan. The last big condition assessment of the full list of assets was done basically just before the beginning of COVID and the ramp up in inflation and costs. So we really need to dial in some more accurate costing for moving forward. So that's it on our plate for this year. And procurement of 3 EV vehicles, it says, but we're actually going to do 2. So we've spread the capital spending out a little bit for the vehicle replacements. So we'll have two EVs this year. We don't have any currently, so they'll be the first one. So hoping to have a successful procurement there, and that they work well for the service, as well as a new maintenance truck, which is going to be very helpful to not rely on contractors to be able to pull any of the pumps out of our pump stations, mobile and ready to go, with the ability to weld and have a high ab on the back so we can access any of our pumps at any time. And quick on the trends, challenges, and opportunities. As Mark spoke to, of course, I can still is a big challenge for us in the winter. Varies really quickly. December, obviously very wet. Lots of flow through the plant. Many days in the high 20s to mid 30,000 cubic meters a day coming through, versus our summer flows at around 12,000 cubes a day. And now we can see with the cold weather and no rain in quite some time, our flows have dropped back down to 13,000, 14,000. So we're not much over what summer is without the rain. So it really highlights that impact to I&I. We've had a couple of the challenges has been with everything that's been going on. We've had some senior staff retire over the last several years. So we've had to bring on, replacing those individuals and just bringing them up to speed on all of our different platforms. Everything we operate is a little bit of a different beast. We've got our main treatment plant is different than the leachate facility and the compost and flares, and we have to have the ability to kind of backfill roles. So it's been work to get everyone up to speed, but we're feeling pretty good right now. The aging infrastructure, driving asset management push to decrease reactive maintenance. A big piece of that is we're hoping to complete kind of a piping condition assessment at the treatment plant this year. A lot of the pipe work's not necessarily identified the same way as pumps and blowers and valves are. So we find ourselves doing work in the summer, regular maintenance, and coming across pipes that are end of life, rotted out, need to be replaced. And we want to have that plan in place ahead of time instead of finding it as we're in the middle of a job. And last but not least, safety. We've done a lot of work over the last year to kind of revamp our lockout tagout procedures and really put that safety in front and focus for all the jobs we do. So it's been going really well. Everybody's working through the new program, and we've been implementing it on all the jobs that we've been doing. So they're learning quickly. So overall, it was a good last year, and it's going to be a busy year again this year, but lots to accomplish. So we'll keep our nose to the grindstone.
Thanks,
That's it
Reid.
for me.
Thanks very much, Reid, to you and your crew.
Okay, moving on to a summary of the proposed plan. Actually, sorry, one last piece here, just to overlap with the board's strategic priorities. So two of those strategic priorities overlap with the sewer service. The first being completion of the sewer conveyance project, and we have a slide on that one later in the presentation. And the second being completion of the LWMP process. So we re-engaged with the Technical and Public Advisory Committee late last year to help guide us through the final stage 3 portion of the plan. And just to segue from Reid's last point there on safety. So starting with human resources. So the one shift in 2025 that's recommended is proposed is the addition of a new health and safety coordinator in 2025 to be funded, a third of which to be funded from this service. So that shifts our FTEs for the service up by 0.33. Looking into the latter years of the plan, so next year we, and as carried for several years now since the conveyance project was approved, we've been carrying an FTE timed for completion of the project. So with the delay in completion from 25 to 26, we have pushed this new additional FTE to next year. That's to help manage the additional load being brought on by the conveyance project, which includes, in addition to newer, larger pump stations that are now much higher pressure pushing up on over the hill, a number of additional air valves and vacuum release valves and odor control facilities that will need to be maintained throughout the year. And then looking even further out to 2028, we are proposing a new position, which has also been in the financial plan for several years now, a new administrative position to help manage the service. Looking at a summary of expenses in the proposed plan versus the last year's approved budget. Yeah, very modest increase in material supplies and utilities. And a slight decrease in contract and general services, largely due to a reduction in projected engineering fees as we progress from planning to capital delivery. So for example, for the phase 4 upgrades at the treatment plant, big focus on planning last year, but as we progress through this year, it'll be shifting into detailed design for that work. And so then it comes off of the operational budget onto the capital, as you'll see on the latter slides. Debt, big increase in debt as we start to incur borrowing to help fund the conveyance project. Showing a pretty significant decrease in transfer to reserves, but that last year, we'll see what happens after the surplus is tallied for this year. Transfer to other services has a big decrease as we have shifted from funding the PMO, Charlie and his team, directly out of operations. So moving forward, they are now funded out of the respective capital projects. So that's showing up as a decrease here on that third to last line. Looking at revenue, the requisition is increasing by $500,000 this year as forecast. So in line with the prior 2 or 3 financial plans. Sales of service, which arise from septage and compost sales, as well as revenue from DND and KFN up, in the same ballpark. They should be roughly proportional to the increase in requisition. And the surplus for this year is projected to be less than that was carried forward from 23. Looking at operating revenue, just a further breakdown on the revenue side, showing how the requisition, which is increasing from 9 million to 9.5 million in 25, how that is projected to be split between the city of Courtenay and town of Comox based on prior year's flows. And then showing the breakdown of revenue from DND and KFN. I believe DND's revenue is still showing or reflecting the current agreement, but we are in the midst of negotiating or renegotiating the sewer service agreement with DND to remove DND payment of conveyance project debt servicing, and that's relating to the upfront capital contribution that the DND has made to the project. And at the bottom there, just showing the contribution from septage and compost sales. The operating budget, we have a big step up in material supplies and utilities in 2026 as we bring the conveyance infrastructure online. By far the biggest increase is in the increase in debt, but hydro is also a pretty major increase year over year as we start to pump the wastewater flows up and over Lazo Hill rather than along the foreshore. So shifting to the capital planning side. So just a couple notes on asset management. We continue to ramp up our effort on asset management with the guidance of our newly hired manager of asset management. So we'll be continuing to update our asset inventory this year, supporting corporate development of the program. As we touched on briefly, their development of a condition assessment program to help guide our condition assessment efforts to help regularly reassess our risk and criticality of our assets, so we are replacing critical assets before they fail. We are also working with an interdepartmental team to help coordinate implementation of our CityWorks, our computerized maintenance management system for the service, which will be a big part of increasing the quality of our preventative maintenance program and cost tracking. And finally, we're working on scoping and selection of a decision support software, which will help us better manage our asset inventory and plan for future asset replacement. So the 25 to 29 capital plan, so the 5-year capital plan is summarized here. Just looking at the top line, so annual capital equipment, some of the big ticket items there. So like Reid mentioned, we are budgeting for a maintenance truck in 2025. And then in 26 and 27, we have funds projected for replacement of our 2 loaders at the compost facility. So those are big pieces of equipment. But I think we've got about 15 years out of them, roughly 10, 15 years. And then looking farther out to the end of that 5-year plan, we have replacement of one of our 2 dump trucks that transport the biosolids from the treatment plant up to the compost facility. Sewer conveyance upgrades, which I'll touch on a subsequent slide. Asset management capital projects, just very briefly on those. We've got a new genset at the CFB Comox pump station. We've got some replacements of some mobile equipment, some new drive units. Annual capital projects, we there's funding there for building that access road that Reid mentioned around the side of the Courtenay pump station to allow us to consistent, reliable access to the siphon. And about second to last line there, I'm just seeing a bit of an error there. So we're currently carrying $46 million as a placeholder value for the phase 1 upgrades at the treatment plant. That'll be authorized by the LWMP. And that was meant to be 27, 28, 29. So 10 million, 26 and 10. The 10 and 26 shown in 2025 and 26 should be zeros there. Yeah, we'll address that. And then finally, as Reid mentioned, we have budgeted for 3 vehicle replacements, but we're shifting one of those to 26 just to help spread those costs out a little bit. And then looking into the second half of the 10-year capital plan, we've got some allowances there, some vehicle purchases at the bottom, and then on the far right top, we've got scheduled replacement of our other dump trucks that are showing up well into the 2030s. And then just a brief summary slide showing where we're at with the conveyance project. So total approved budget of $96 million. So this table was out of the dashboard that was brought forward in mid-January. We were about 38.5 million towards that spend. So we are approaching kind of the halfway mark as far as spending for the project goes. And this, we've talked about the various pieces, and you've seen this before. This slide just summarizes how the various pieces, all the work that's been happening and that's slated to happen, kind of revolving around the treatment plant. This slide just ties together the process expert, how that fed into finalization of the site master plan, and working towards the Class B cost estimates that are required to feed into the Stage 3 LWMP report. So yeah, complex project that's showing up as some significant costs still on the operations side with the to support the LWMP process. But as I mentioned earlier, kind of as we get into the latter part of 25, transitioning onto the more capital side as we transition to detailed design. Got a couple of slides here just summarizing where we're at and projected to go with our reserves. So we have 3 reserves for this service: the future expenditure reserve for unforeseen operational eventualities and legal cost liability stuff. Second one is our capital works and machinery reserve that funds all of our major capital, non-growth related capital. And then the final is the development cost charge reserve, where all growth related projects or growth related components of projects are funded from. So the FE reserve is slated to continue to grow over this 5-year plan as we bring it up to the level that we feel is warranted for this service of this size. The capital works reserve is both being strengthened and used as we navigate completion of the conveyance project and initiation of the treatment plant upgrades. Contributions kind of bottom out in 2029, but then recover in the latter 5 years, projected to recover the latter 5 years of our plan as we start to get the conveyance project complete, the treatment plant project completed, and start to save for the outfall replacement project that is likely to be coming just off the end of the 10-year capital plan in the late 2030s. And here's a slide just showing where we're projecting the balance for the development cost charge reserve. So we do have a DCC study underway right now that should be complete by the middle of the year. These projections are based on the existing rates. As we once the new rates are embedded within the bylaw, we'll bring back revisions in the next financial plan. So that's it. Here's a summary slide, but Reid and I are happy to speak to any questions.
Thanks very much, Chris. And Director Hardy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a quick question. I'm sure staff have looked at it 100 million times already, but in comparison to buying vehicles instead of leasing vehicles, I'm just wondering if that's something that we've looked at and done a cost analysis with regards to, are we cheaper, or is there a better benefit to the constituents if we're leasing vehicles instead of buying vehicles? Thanks.
I can certainly speak to on the kind of the larger pieces of equipment. We are considering that, we're taking another look at that for the big mobile piece of equipment at the compost facility. In the past, we did have a leasing arrangement prior to the purchase of the new or the equipment that is now up for replacement. Just given the potential some uncertainty in the future of biosolids production, we were contemplating a leasing arrangement. But as to the fleet, that's kind of outside of my purview. James, do you have any comment on that?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, and the regional district does have a fleet management policy. I recall that it has been revisited by the board in certainly the past couple of years, and I'd have to go back to see if there was any kind of analysis on a lease versus purchase in considering that fleet management policy. That policy does speak to the frequency by which we're looking to replace vehicles and stay current with technology. So I'd offer that. I would have to go back to understand if we did any kind of a lease versus purchase analysis in presenting that. And we can do that. We can provide that background information. Unless I know, Lucy's probably got some perspective on that as well. So
Kelly was just informing me that going back a number of years that there was an analysis done around lease to buy and whether it would be better or not. The results of that just told us stay course to purchase instead of lease. Some of those reasons are that we are able to repurpose some of our existing vehicles and that they're used in other departments where it doesn't meet a need in one department anymore. Sometimes they're going to another department, and therein lies one of the benefits of actually buying. However, as James has said, the policy does include looking at lease arrangements to see whether there is better value, and I certainly can see as to the future coming back into those analyses as well. With tariffs coming on, and we know that vehicles are going to be hit. I'm not quite too sure what it's going to be looking like for us as we go forward, as we're considering our vehicle needs, and leasing again may be something else that we have some pretty different results coming out of those types of analysis. But I guess long and short, for sure, it's something that is considered along the way as we make decisions on where to allocate the funds.
Thanks very much, Lucy. Further questions or comments? Chris, did you have something more you wanted to add?
Nope, nothing more to add on that one. Thanks, Chair.
All right. Seeing no further questions or comments, we do have a recommendation that the proposed 2025 to 2029 financial plan for the Service 335 Comox Valley Sewage Service be approved. Would someone like to move that? Looks like that was moved by Kerr and seconded by McCollum. Is there any discussion? All right, we'll vote on it. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. We did manage to skip over the Sewage Management Advisory Committee minutes, so I'll take a motion for receipt of those January 30th minutes, moved by Grant. Second by Cole Hamilton. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And that brings us to the end of our meeting. Move to terminate. All in favor? Carried. Thanks very much to staff. Thanks to directors, and see you next time.